Oh, this is going to be a fun one. So, the sportsbook have already spoken. The AFC futures are on the board. According to Vegas, Baltimore's the team to beat. Buffalo is right behind them. Kansas City is still dangerous. And everybody else, I guess they got a whole lot of work to do, right? You know what? And maybe Vegas is right. Maybe the market already figured out the AFC. Or maybe, just maybe, they missing something. Because after us breaking down every AFC division, after grading every draft class, after looking at the quarterback, the rosters, the fantasy angles, and trying to figure out where the money at, football is money. We see things a little differently. Some divisions we agree on, some divisions we don't. And when Vegas and football is money disagree, somebody sees something that the other side doesn't. So today, we not just asking who can win. We asking who's being priced right. We asking who's being overlooked, who's being overvalued, and where the money is hiding. And bottom line, does Vegas agree with football is money? Let's find out. Hey man, where my theme music at? I keep telling you, once I get done saying what I'm saying, you gotta drop the music. Hey yo, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to Football is Money. I'm your host, they call me Boss, and today we taking everything that we learned from the AFC Draft Grade Series, and we're gonna put it up against the sports book because we already gone division by division. We've looked at the quarterbacks, we looked at the draft classes, we looked at the rosters. I mean, deep dive. You know, we talked about fantasy value, we've talked about team direction. Now it's time to talk about something different. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about, does the betting market see the AFC the same way as football is money? Because the odds ain't just random numbers. They tell you who Vegas believes in. It tells you who the sports book are unsure about. You know, they tell you who the market respects. And sometimes they tell you who might be getting overlooked, man. But before we get into the divisions, let's keep it real simple. Let's talk about what these numbers mean when you see the numbers on side of a team or whatever. When the payout is smaller, Vegas is saying that their team has a better chance to win. Pretty much. Try to even it out, right? When the payout is bigger, Vegas is saying that a team is more risky. You know what I mean? So if you see a team at minus 125, that means you got to risk $125 just to win $100, and you scale it on up or down however you see fit. And that usually means Vegas believes in that team, but the payout ain't too great, right? 125 to win 100. Now, if you see a team at plus 225, that means if you risk 100, you win 225. You know what I mean? And that team may not be the favorite, but if you're right, the reward is better. And that's where the conversation really starts, you know, because the best team isn't always the best bet. Follow me now, you know, but the biggest payout ain't automatically the best bet neither. You know what I'm saying? So we're not just chasing plus money. We're not forcing long shots neither. And we definitely not running from favorites just because the payout is smaller, okay? The ticket has to make sense both ways. The value has to make sense. The probability has to make sense. And the football got to match the numbers, all right? So that's the theme for today. Vegas gives us the price. Football is money gives us perspective. And then we ask, does the numbers match what we see on the field? So let's dig through the AFC. We got to talk about the East, the South, the North, the West. Can't forget about the West side. Some say that might be the best side. And we're going to talk about who's going to be the AFC champion. We're going to talk about the best value bets, a little fantasy investment, and then we close it out, you know, with the final drive. All right? So let's go. Vegas versus football is money. Round one. All right. So like I say, man, we're going to AFC East first. I don't know. We like starting on the east side. Kind of make our way around some way, somehow. All right. So we got Buffalo Bills minus 125. We got New England Patriots plus 120. New York Jets plus 1900. Miami Dolphins sitting at plus 4,000. So Vegas is telling us that this division belongs to Buffalo. And you know what? Football is money. We agree. This is one of the spots where me and the sports book are looking at it the same way. Now, I'm not going to ignore New England. You know, the Patriots, they was in the Super Bowl just past year. A.J. Brown going to New England. That makes them even more of a contender. And at plus 120, I believe that that's real value. You know, it's not a crazy long shot or nothing like that. That's not a throw it away and hope type of ticket. You know what I'm saying? That's a team with a real chance and a real payout. So if somebody tells me they like New England at plus 120, I understand it. I get it. The number makes sense. The probability makes sense. The football makes sense, right? But if I have to put my money on one team to win the AFC East, I'm going Buffalo. You know, because I feel like Josh Allen is still the guy to beat. And I'm not just going to force the New England Patriots just because there's a better payout. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, that's the exact point of the show, right? We're not just chasing value. We matching value with probability, okay? New England gives you better value. I get it. But Buffalo gives me the better chance to cash the ticket. Now, when we get down to the Jets and the Dolphins, right, that's a different conversation. Let me see, what Jets sitting at plus 1900, the Dolphins at plus 4,000. You know, that's long shot territory, man. So if you want to sprinkle something small just because you believe in a miracle, that's your call. But for this conversation, these are non-factors for me, right? The real conversation in the AFC East is Buffalo versus New England. And Vegas says Buffalo. Football is money says Buffalo as well. But New England is close enough to make you look twice. All right? So round one, we got an agreement. Cool. Vegas say Buffalo. I say Buffalo. But that don't mean we just following the sports book today, all right? You know what I'm saying? Let's get that understood because now we move on to round two. And this is where the conversation changes, right? AFC North. Here's the board. So you got Baltimore Ravens minus 115. You got Cincinnati Bengals plus 194. Pittsburgh Steelers plus 510. Cleveland Browns plus 2100. So Vegas has Baltimore as the favorite. And I understand why, right? Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP. Baltimore is always dangerous whenever he's on the field. And when you see the Ravens near the top of this division, nobody should act surprised, right? So I'm not saying Vegas is crazy for having Baltimore first, but this is where football is money starts looking at the football a little differently. Because for Baltimore, a lot of this comes down to young talent stepping up, right? They need those young pieces to grow into the system at a rapid pace. They need the offense to stay healthy. They need Lamar to be Lamar, right? And produce the way that we've seen him produce in the past. And I'm not judging Baltimore just off last year because I do believe health played a part in what we saw last year. But when I look at Cincinnati, I see something more established. You understand what I'm saying? I see the quarterback. I see the weapons, the offensive core, right? I seen a team that's been making moves over the last couple of years to position itself for this exact moment. A lineman here, a defensive piece here, you know, a major contract here, trade here, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. These roster move here and there, and now it feels like Cincinnati had reached the point where they don't just have potential, they have structure, right? They have firepower. And they have enough around Joe Burrow to finally take control of this division. So yes, I understand. Baltimore is the favorite, and I get it. I respect it. But football is money. It's not going with Baltimore here, baby. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna break away from the pack and go with Cincinnati. At plus 194, that number makes sense to me, right? Because you got value, but it's not just value for the sake of value, right? The probability makes sense as well. This is not a plus 2100. This is not a miracle ticket. This is a real contender with a real quarterback, with real weapons, and a real path to winning the AFC North, right? Now, Pittsburgh at 510, that's not a bad number. You know, if you believe in the Steelers' stability, they usually find a way to be competitive year in and year out. But do I think they have enough firepower to take this division? Not over Cincinnati, not over Baltimore. And then let's talk about Cleveland at 2100, plus 2100. That's long shot territory. We all know just by the numbers. Now, if you believe in the Browns turning everything around, that's your ticket. Do what you do. But for me, they not part of the main conversation. This division comes down to Cincinnati and Baltimore. And Vegas says Baltimore, man, but football is money. I got to say Cincinnati, right? The AFC North winner, for me, Cincinnati Bengals. The best value is the Cincinnati Bengals at plus 194. So I guess so far this is the first real disagreement on the board. Round 2, football is money goes against Vegas. Do we win? We got to stay tuned throughout the season and come back at the end to see. All right. But before we get to round 3, I want to say, if you want to be a part of the Football is Money Pick'em Pool Party this year, it's coming up. Make sure you tap in, man. We'll be picking games every week, the whole slate, betting against the spread. And whoever gets the most pick right win the pot. We talking about real money on the line every week. And it's just another way for the community to stay locked in all season. You know what I'm saying? To be part of what we got going on. For the fantasy leagues, the first 3 leagues are already full. So we just opened up 3 more. And if you want a spot, don't wait around, man. Get locked in. Make sure you're ready to play and make sure you're ready for the season. Okay? Football is Money is building all off season, and we're going to keep this thing moving. You know, the more people want to sign up, the more leagues we're going to open up. You know what I'm saying? A couple of years ago, we only had 2. The year after that, we had 3. You know, this year, we already got 3 in this June. So let's see if we can get some more going. All right. Now, let's get back to the numbers. Round 3, AFC West, the Wild Wild West. We just did a show on this division last week. We got Chiefs plus 160. We got Los Angeles Chargers plus 190. We got Denver Broncos plus 220. Las Vegas Raiders plus 2,000. Now, they trying to trick you up right here because when people see Kansas City, they automatically think Patrick Mahomes. They think Super Bowls. They think big moments, playoff runs, championship standard, right? I get it. I promise you I get it. And it's hard to look past all of that and just look at it with real eyes. Now, Patrick Mahomes is the baby GOAT. I'm not here to deny that, disrespect that, or anything like that. But this is where we have to separate the name from the number, right? Mahomes is coming back from an ACL injury. He's ahead of schedule. They push it for week 1. And when the public hears that, they start saying Kansas City is back, the kingdom, Chiefs kingdom. But us over here at Football is Money, we got to ask a different question. Is Kansas City really the best bet at plus 160? Or is that number carrying too much of the pass? Because Vegas give us the price, right? Football is Money give us the perspective, right? And my perspective is this. Denver at plus 225 is the number that makes the most sense to me. Bo Nix, he had a fractured ankle last year in the playoffs against Buffalo, but he's already back in training camp and expected to be ready for week 1. And, you know, I see Denver. I don't see a team that accidentally ended up in this conversation. I see a team that's been built to contend, right? I see a team with structure. I see a team with a potent defense, good head coaching. I see a team that already showed that it can stand and go toe-to-toe with anybody in this division. And I also see a team that might be getting priced lower than it should be because the public still wants to hear Kansas City first. So That's where the value shows up. Not just because Denver got a bigger payout, but because Denver has a real chance to win this division. And that's the key, man. So we're not forcing the long shot. We're not trying to force long shots on any of these tickets. We're not reaching for a plus 2,000 just because the Raiders payout is bigger. We matching the number with the football. The Raiders at plus 2,000, that's crazy money, man. You know, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, man. But if you want to sprinkle it in on your ticket, that's your choice. You know what I'm saying? Please do what you do. You know, all my Raiders fans, don't do what you do. Because you never know. You know, things happen. And I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm just going to say it's highly unlikely. All right? So, let's keep it moving, man. We got the Chargers at plus 190. And, you know, I understand the number. They were right there last year. Second in the AFC West. They building. They improving. They getting a team together. But I still don't have them ahead of Denver. And I don't have them ahead of Kansas City either. So my AFC West order is a little different from Vegas, a.k.a. the sportsbook. You know, Vegas got Kansas City first, then the Chargers, then Denver. Football is money. I got Denver first, Kansas City second, Chargers third, and the Raiders fourth. I think we already went over this last week, but here we are again from a different angle, you know. And this is why futures matter, right? You have to lock these numbers in before the season starts. You're not betting on one game. You're betting on how the whole division plays out throughout the course of an entire season. You know, who gets the automatic playoff spot? Who survives the full season? And when I look at the West side on the AFC, I'd rather take Denver at plus 225 than Kansas City at plus 160 because the payout is better, right? And that is one reason. But the team is real. The probability makes sense. And the football matches the number. I know Vegas say Kansas City, but the good folks over here at Football is Money, we're going to ride with Denver. So round 3, we disagree again. Who's going to be right? You got to be locked in if you want to understand, my friend. So here we go. Round 4, we got AFC South. And this one is a little different because me and Vegas mostly see this one the same way, right? But there is one number on this board that makes you stop and think about it for a second. So here's the AFC South division odds. Houston plus 110. We got Jaguars plus 245. Colts plus 380 and the Titans plus 800. So the sports book got Houston as the favorite, understandably. And Football is Money is going to say Houston too. You know, we already broke down the AFC South. We already talked about what Houston has done in the draft and with everything they building around C.J. Stroud, the work they put around their quarterback, the moves that they made. They try to clean up some of the issues that held them back in the previous seasons. And when you look at this division, Houston still feels like the safest ticket, right? But this is not one of those divisions where I'm just slamming the favorite and moving on, because Jacksonville at plus 245 is sitting right there. And that number is real. And that's great value. You know, that's not a crazy long shot ticket neither. You know, that's not a plus 2,000, right? This is a team with a real chance to win the division. And Vegas is still giving you a much better payout than Houston, right? So this is where the decision gets tough. Because if I'm saying Houston wins the division, then I also have to believe that Jacksonville doesn't fully take advantage of the opportunity sitting in front of them. And I don't know if that's an easy thing to say. Jacksonville winning the division is not hard to picture. You know, it's not unrealistic. It's not out the way. They have a real path. But Houston, it does feel like the safer bet. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes the lower payout is lower for a reason. Houston at plus 110 is not giving you some huge return, but if we're talking about the team I trust the most to finish on top of the AFC South, I have to go Houston. Now let's look at the Colts plus 380. The number kind of fits, but I'm not putting them above Houston or Jacksonville. And Tennessee at plus 800, that's the longest shot in this division. They could surprise people with their new pickups and everything, maybe. But for this ticket, we're not going there. If you want to do long shots and, just try to throw stuff and see what sticks, you can do that on your own time. I'm going to give you the real. And the real conversation is Houston versus Jaguars. And Vegas says Houston, and football is money, agree, right? But Jacksonville at plus 245 is the one. I ain't going to clown you if you say you're going to take that. Matter of fact, that might be the one I look back and say, yeah, I should have took it. Because I believe that can happen, but I'm going to try to keep it level-headed here and not let my emotions outweigh the logic in my decision-making, right? So for the final ticket, I'm going H-Time, man. H-Time for the AFC South. Even though I hate to see it. But, it got to be said. So that's going to wrap up the division by division breakdown of the odds and everything. Let's see. AFC East, Vegas and football is money. We agree on that. The AFC North, we disagree on that one. I got Cincinnati and they got Baltimore. AFC West, we disagree again because the sportsbook and the public got Kansas City. I got Denver, right? In the AFC South, I feel like it could be a split, but I'm going to go ahead and go with Houston. It's the safest pick there, although I don't think Jacksonville is totally out of it. But now we got to take one step back, right? And we got to look at the whole conference as a whole, because winning your division is one thing, but winning the AFC, the entire AFC, is something completely different. So the question becomes, who does the sports book really believe can come out of the AFC? And does we here at Football is Money agree? And I'm gonna tell you, I don't think so, man. I don't think we will agree. All right. It's hard for me to see things how they see it, man, because I think it's a setup anyway. You understand what I'm saying? All right, so here we go. Here's the AFC Champion Odds. We got Baltimore Ravens at plus 480, Buffalo Bills plus 520, Kansas City Chiefs plus 760, New England plus 760. We got the Chargers plus 830, the Texans plus 850. We have the Denver Broncos plus 1025, Cincinnati Bengals plus 1025, Jacksonville Jaguars plus 1450, Pittsburgh Steelers plus 2200, Indianapolis Colts plus 2800, Tennessee Titans plus 5500, Las Vegas Raiders plus 7600, Cleveland Browns plus 8600, New York Jets plus 8600, Miami Dolphins plus 15,000. So, according to Vegas, according to the guys down at the sports book, the faceless people who just take everybody money every week, every year, according to these guys, Baltimore is the favorite to win the AFC. That means they basically saying Baltimore is the team most likely to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. And Buffalo right behind them. So if we just reading the board, if we just going to read the odds, Vegas telling us most likely AFC Championship matchup would be something like Buffalo versus Baltimore. After they done knocked off Kansas City, New England, the Chargers, Houston, Denver, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, after they knock off all these guys, those going to be the two guys in the in the conference championship. So Vegas got one team from the north, which is going to be Baltimore. The other guys are cooked, according to Vegas. We got two teams from the east, Josh Allen and Drake May. They got 3 teams coming out of the West: Kansas City, Denver, and the Chargers, and 1 team from the South. Now, I agree with that 1 team coming out the South, but you never know. You never know. And right outside that group, sitting at number 8, you got Cincinnati Bengals plus 1025. And that's the number that jumps off of the screen to me, because y'all already heard what I said in the AFC North segment. I don't believe Baltimore wins this conference. I understand why Vegas has them there. I understand Lamar. I understand the MVPs 2 times. Put some respect on it. You know what I'm saying? I got that. But if you ask me who has a better shot between Baltimore and Buffalo, we're going to keep Cincinnati out of it. If we ask me who's the better shot between Baltimore and Buffalo, I would leave Buffalo before I lean Baltimore. And there's no ulterior motives that go along with that. We talking about taking the politics out of it, taking your heart out of it, and simply trying to go in and win some money. Yeah. I got Buffalo over Baltimore. But if I'm making my AFC Champion pick, I got Cincinnati over them both. You know what I'm saying? I know what things looked like last year. I understand the injury. I understand the injury-prone quarterback, but these guys can make it through the season healthy, and that statement goes for any team. Because if Baltimore end up getting their quarterback get hurt, they're not going to be able to even put up a fight. But like I say, because when I look at my 4 division winners, Buffalo in the East, Cincinnati in the North, Denver in the West, Houston in the South, and I asked myself, who has the best chance to be the last one standing after the dust settles? And my answer is Cincinnati, And the crazy part is the value is still sitting right there, plus 1025. So that means if you just decide to put $100 on Cincinnati to win the AFC, you could win $1,025 if they get it done. That's the kind of number where the value and the football start lining up perfectly, because this is not a random team. This is not some emotional long shot. We talking about Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Sexy Dexter. This is an offense that can go score for score with anybody in the conference. This is a team that I believe is positioned to finally take control of this division and make a real AFC run. And that's what makes this board, these odds, feel disrespectful. Cincinnati sitting behind Baltimore, sitting behind Buffalo, sitting behind KC, New England, the Chargers, for Pete's sake, Houston, come on now, Denver. This when people let the past bias affect their future perception. And I get why some of those teams are up there. Buffalo is a respected team. Kansas City got the baby goat. Who can go against the kid? New England just came from the Super Bowl. Houston, they seem to be a stable team. They just got quarterback issues. I understand Denver making it to the championship game. But Cincinnati being down at number 8, I feel like the market is letting last year affect how it sees this season. And that's where short betting comes in. Because public opinion can move the numbers crazily. Emotion can move the numbers. Last year's story can move the numbers. But if the football tells you something different, that's where you have to be ready to pounce. Now look at the bottom of this board real quick. We got Miami at plus 15,000. $100 on Miami win you 15 bands, man. That sounds crazy because it is. No, it is. That number is telling you how far away Vegas thinks Miami is. And now I already know that somebody out there is going to sprinkle a little razzle-dazzle on that thing. You know what I'm saying? Some diehard Miami fan is going to look at the payout and say, you know what? Why not? Let me put $20, $30 on there. Hey, you know, if you believe and that's what you want to do, that's your money on. Feel free, my boy. But this is why I say you have to take emotion out of betting, right? Because a huge payout doesn't automatically make it a smart bet, man. Sometimes it's huge because the chance is extremely low, right? And that's why this whole episode comes back to the same idea: value and probability. The payout has to make sense, but the football has to make sense too. And for me, Cincinnati checks both boxes. Check and check. All right. Buffalo makes sense. Baltimore makes sense if you believe in the favorite. Kansas City makes sense if you still trust Mahomes and that championship DNA. It's not going anywhere, just not this year, right? New England makes sense if you believe last year was real and they can get back to the mountaintop. Denver makes sense if you believe that they can stay, if they stay consistent. Bo Nix don't get hurt in their game against Buffalo. Denver goes to the Super Bowl and possibly win that thing. That's neither here nor there. Let's keep it going. So let's see. I understand Houston, you know, they make sense if you believe they control the South, but, you know, just controlling the South don't mean you're going to beat the East, West, and the North. You know, so my AFC champion pick, I'm going with Joe Shiesty in the Cincinnati Bengals. Plus 1025. And that's the one I like. That's the number I will put my money on. And I'm not here to tell you what to do with your money, you know. I'm just here to give you the information, give you the perspective, and show you how I'm reading the board. Because again, like I say, man, Vegas, they give us the prices. We over here at Football This Money gonna show you how you need to take that and, you know, adjust your betting. Proper perspective, right? And on this AFC Championship board, I see value in Cincinnati, man. So, yeah. Don't shoot the messenger. Wait. I am the message and the messenger. All right. Let's go. Let's go. So, I guess moral of the story is Football This Money don't always agree with Vegas. Probably hardly ever. You know what I'm saying? But it's all good, you know. We love the numbers because it helps us identify where we can make some money. And this is Football This Money. And we'll be remiss if we didn't help y'all make some too. All right. And whether you agree with that or not, this is why futures betting is different. Those are not 1 week bets. You know, those are not Sunday morning panic picks. These are season long bets. You're putting the ticket in before the season even starts, and you're betting on how the whole year is going to play out. Who wins the division? Who wins the conference? Who gets to go to the dance, the playoffs? You know, who goes over their win totals? Who falls short of them? And that means everything has to line up, right? Because if I'm saying a team is going to win a division, then I need to look at their win totals and ask, does this number match what I already believe? Because I can't say I love Houston to win the South and then be shocked when Houston, you know, win total is sitting at 9.5. I can't say I love Denver to win the AFC West, then ignore Denver sitting at 9.5. The division pick, the conference odds, and the win totals, they all tell a story. They have to all tell a story, right? They don't always have to give you the same exact answer, but they have to make sense together, man. So let's see if we can find some money in the win totals before we get out of here, all right? So when you're looking at win totals, this is very important, man. You know, you're not trying to bet every team over or under. That's too much stress. There's too much action. And our action ain't good action, right? You ain't got to touch every number on the board, right? You don't have to pick every team, you know, over or under. Just like on Sunday, you know, you don't have to bet on every game. Sometimes we like to do it just for the fun, just for the hell of it. But the goal is to find the numbers that line up with what you already believe, right? Find the teams where the football, the probability, and the number all make sense together. So let's go division by division again and, you know, find one number from each spot that we actually like. So let's see. AFC East, Buffalo sitting at 10.5. New England sitting at 9.5. Jets 5.5. Miami 4.5. And if I already have new Buffalo in this division, then I'm looking straight at the Bills over 10.5, right? Do I think Buffalo can get 11 wins? Yeah, of course I do. Especially in this division, right? If Buffalo is really the team to beat in the AFC East and Josh Allen is still the guy everybody has to go through, then 11 wins is not asking for too much. So in the AFC East, the one I like is Buffalo over 10.5. That lines up with the division pick. It lines up with the football, and it lines up with the probability, right? Now, if you want to go for the Dolphins over 4.5, or the Jets over their 5.5, and the Patriots, there's you feel free to do what you want to do. You know what I'm talking about? I'm just trying to tell you how it lined up for us over here at Footballers Money. All right. So let's go to the North and let's see if we can get one out of here. So we got Baltimore sitting at 11.5. Cincinnati sitting at 9.5. Pittsburgh 8.5. Cleveland 6.5. I'll probably take Cleveland under 6.5 to tell you the truth. But this is where you got to be careful though. Because just because I like Cincinnati to go over 9.5 doesn't automatically mean I have to take Baltimore under 11.5. Both things can be true. Cincinnati can go over 9.5, and Baltimore can still have a strong season and go over 11 games too. And Cincinnati can still win that division, right? I don't have to touch every number in the division. I just have to find the one that lines up with my read. You understand what I'm saying? And for me, that's Cincinnati over 9.5. I already picked the Bengals to win the division. So if I believe they're going to win the AFC North, I have to believe they can get at least 10 wins, right? And when I look at Cincinnati, I see a team that lost a lot of close games in the last years. Games that came down to 3.6 points, right? One score games. And these were games where the offense was scoring 30-plus points, but they just couldn't close it out because of the defense. Now you add the moves that they've made. You add more help on defense. You solidify the offense. You add pieces throughout the draft, the pieces that you brought in. I believe that is enough to flip some of those close losses into W's, man. So in the AFC North, the number I like is the Bengals over 9.5. Baltimore 11.5. I'm staying away from that one. Not because Baltimore can't get there, but just because I don't have to force that bet, right? The Bengals over 9.5 is the number that matches my projection through and through. And that's what I'm going with. Now let's slide down to the south side. All right, so we got Houston. They sitting at 9.5. Jacksonville, 9.5. The Colts, 8.5. Tennessee, 6.5. And this one connects right back to what we just said in the division segment, right? I like Houston to win the AFC South. So if Houston is my winner, I look at that 9.5 and say, can they get 10 wins? I mean, what they got, 13 last year? So, yeah, not just to say because they got 13 last year that you automatically get 13 again, but I believe they get 10. They did the work around the quarterback. They made the moves. They tried to clean up the issues, and I believe they are the safest ticket to win a division. Houston over 9.5 makes sense. But I see Jacksonville sitting at 9.5 too. And that's worth paying attention to, right? Because I told you earlier, Jacksonville at plus 245 to win a division is the number that I understand and can get behind because they have a real path to winning that division. So if you like Jacksonville, I wouldn't be mad at Jacksonville over 9.5 either, right? But for the official pick here, I'm going to keep it lined up with my division winner and my Footballers Money read. The AFC South, the number I like is Houston Texans over 9.5 wins. And Jacksonville over 9.5 wins is the one I keep, I keep on the side and think about it too. But officially, H-Town over 9.5. Now let's go to the West. Kansas City sitting at 10.5. Chargers 10.5. Denver sitting at 9.5. And the Raiders all the way down at 5.5. And I want you guys to remember these numbers and these projections and go back and look at the 32 quarterback rankings that we did. These projections that Vegas just set out, they almost align perfectly with the projections and how we seen it, on the show that we did a few months ago, right? And this is why I love looking at win totals, after looking at the division odds, because if I already believe Denver can win the AFC, if I already believe these quarterbacks take a step, then that number stands out immediately. Denver, they was on the tear last year, man. They showed they can compete. They showed that they can win. They showed they not just some cute little story, you know what I'm saying? And now the market is still putting Kansas City and the Chargers ahead of them in this division. Come on, man. So Denver win total is sitting at 9.5. And that is where I think Vegas is slipping just a little bit. But we need Vegas to slip up a lot, right? Because if Denver is really my AFC West pick, then I got to believe they get 10 wins. So AFC West, the number I like is Denver over 9.5 wins. Kansas City over 10.5? I don't know. The Chargers over 10.5? I don't know. Those numbers feel a little tighter to me. But Denver over 9.5, it matches what I already believe about this division and this team, right? So here's the win total that I like right now. I got Buffalo over 10.5, Cincinnati over 9.5, Houston over 9.5, Denver over 9.5. See, we're trying to keep it right in that sweet spot. And we're going to track these. We're going to come back and revisit this at the end of the year. And again, that don't mean that every other number is a bad number. For the other 28 teams that we didn't pick. It don't mean that every team has to go under. It just means that these are the ones that line up with what I believe, right? That's how you have to approach the board, man. That's how you have to approach betting against Vegas. You don't need to bet every bet. You need the right bets. You got to find the numbers that make sense. Find the teams that match your football read. Find the spots where the probability is there, because all action ain't good action, man. You need the probability and you need the value. And over a full season, the ticket has to survive more than 1 week. It got to survive injuries. It got to survive schedules, division games, bad stretches where they just playing bad football, close losses, right? Unexpected wins. That's why you have to be selective in what you're picking. Vegas gives us the number. Football is money gives us the perspective. And on these win totals, we're not trying to bet the whole board, right? We're just trying to find where the number matches the football, just like we do with everything else that pertains to football is money. All right. So before we get out of here, let me say this too. Now, I know we didn't really make this a fantasy episode, didn't really talk too much about it. We wasn't going player by player. We wasn't doing start, sit, talk. But everything we talked about today still matters for fantasy. Because when you look at win totals, when you look at division odds, when you look at conference odds, when you look at who Vegas believes in, you can start to get a feel for where the production might come from. You understand what I'm saying? Now, that don't mean that bad teams can't have fantasy players, because we know that they can. Garbage time points are real, right? A lot of fantasy weeks get saved by garbage time points. But when we talk about steady production, we talking about weekly production, yards, receptions, touchdowns, offenses that can keep giving you value over the full season. So you usually want to look at teams that are expected to win games, teams that are expected to compete for division titles, teams that are expected to make playoff runs, because you usually don't get 10, 11, 12 wins without scoring points. And you're not going to score points without somebody getting yards, touchdowns, targets, carries, and plenty of opportunities. So that's why these numbers matter. You know, they don't just help you understand futures, right? They help you understand the football environment. They help you understand which teams might have the offenses that you want to invest in, right? Which teams might be stable, right? Which teams might be volatile. And which teams might be getting priced wrong by the market. So even if you're not betting every futures ticket, even if you're not touching every over-under, pay attention to what these numbers are telling you. Because odds, win totals, spreads, props, fantasy projections, it's all connected. It's all connected. It is all connected. That's why we say Vegas give us the price. Football is money gonna give us the how-to. Football is money give us the perspective. And if you learn how to read the board, you can start seeing the season before the season gets started. Who's with me? Now, before we get out of here, let me remind y'all one more time. The Football is Money Pick'em Pool Party is open. Come one, come all. No bikini, no swim trunks. Just bring your football IQ. This is a season-long event. We picking games against the spread every week. The payouts are weekly. We talking hundreds of dollars going out every week just for picking the right teams. Come on, man. Easy money, baby. So if you want in, go to footballismoney.com and lock in your spot. And for the fantasy leagues, the first 3 leagues are full. So we open up 3 more. If you want to play, don't wait. Get in where you fit in. Lock in your spot, man. And make sure that you're ready for the season. Drop your answers in the comments and let me know. Where did Vegas get the AFC wrong? Are you riding with Baltimore, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Denver, Houston, Chargers, Jacksonville, or whoever you got? Or do you see another ticket on the board that you want to talk about? Let me know what AFC futures bet you would make right now. So appreciate y'all for tapping in, man. Appreciate y'all for rocking with Football is Money. Once again, I am your host. They call me Boss. This is Football is Money, and we out. Boy, if you take one more time to play that music, boy, I'll tell you. Play the goddamn music.
I keep on telling you, you don't come home from that town. I will be kicking.
That's a wrap. Thanks for listening to Football is Money. Find every episode and more at footballismoney.com.